Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Breaking Bedrock. My name is Fiasco. Thank you so much for joining me. We are, I nailed it. Look at that behind us, making huge progress on our base. And by huge progress, I mean very substantial progress in the formation of our hills and whatnot, bringing it all up to this tower here. Now, last episode, we made these little patios here, these little balconies, and actually I need to get up on here. And every time I look at these, I fall more and more in love with the colors. This dark prismarine, it just works. So I'm so happy with these, and I just decided, you know what? It's time. Let's get some work done on terraforming. And before I knew it, I had done quite a bit and recorded absolutely none of it. So I figured I'm actually recording this before I'm done editing and releasing my last episode, which is not normal, but I figured I'm making so much progress and it would be a shame to not show any of it at all. So here is basically, here's the wizard behind the curtain. I have just built myself a very large cave system, and if I was anywhere but a mushroom biome, this would be a death trap. But thankfully, we are safe from mob spawns here, so I'm not too worried about it. Hello. So let's get out of here, and that will probably be not fully filled in later, but I will probably put another layer at least underneath here in time, so that if we go ahead and break a block of grass by mistake, we don't go tumbling into the abyss. Perfect. All right, so I did want to show you kind of, this is my my proudest accomplishment, I think, so far in this series, is terraforming this hill. There's nothing there at all. This is a brand new, fresh piece of terrain, which I have never done anything like this before, so I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, and you'll have to imagine it now with, you know, some trees and whatnot. It does look a little washed out with the how vibrant that color is, but it is nice to have some color in here. And once I add some trees and paths and you know, other things that make it look like somebody actually has lived in this area, it is going to make a huge difference. Let's just, whoops. Oh, I actually don't hate that either. Okay, I'll need to make a proper exit here to go down, and I'm thinking about doing a little tiny fishing village down here. I think that would be cute. I'll also show you the other side, and this is basically what I have left to do is more cliff terraforming. So all of this is new. So you can probably tell the difference between, you know, my improvised generation and real world cliff generation. It does look a little different, but I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think it looks very natural, and it brings the base of the tower, it makes it sit on something firm. And then it tapers down a little bit there. And I'm probably going to add some vines and some grass hanging down, because that always makes things look a lot cooler, especially when you're dealing with very natural earthy palettes and whatnot. So super happy with how that's turned out. So basically we've got one side done with the cliff, one side done with a small hill leading into the natural generation here. And I left this kind of carved out section here because I thought that it made it look natural with how imperfect it was. I could have continued that down and fixed it, but I like how rough it looks. I think that that's an important part of things looking natural. Then this side we have basically done our big hill. This was kind of the one, this was the bigger project, and I tackled it right away. And so now all we have left is this side, which looks like a lot of work, but actually it goes by pretty darn quick. And if you want to know, let's see, how much grass do I have? Great. If you want to know how I did this hill, basically, I just started forming wire frames, and I'll kind of show you what I mean there in a second, but I knew that I wanted this to be a very long slope. So I went down to the end here, and I just started pillaring up, and I had one line of grass drawing a line from where I wanted this to go. And the first one, I did it, I took a look, and it ended up somewhere about here. It wasn't as gradual as I wanted it to be. So I redid it, and I liked how, I liked the slope. So then I just started filling it in, and anywhere that I wasn't sure, like here, the grade had to change in order to accommodate for this bay, then I would make another wireframe. And this looks a little neat and stuff here. I will have to go through and kind of messy it up a little bit, just so it doesn't look so artificial. But what I'll do here is show you what I mean by making a wireframe. We know that our grass needs to get from there down to here. So we start where we want it to end up, and we just start pillaring up with grass. And just kind of keeping an eye on where we need to end up, and that will really determine whether we need to go super steep with it or more gradual. Now we do need to get pretty steep, and I'll probably just connect this maybe straight onto here so that we can grade all of that down. But yeah, this is a pretty steep one, so we are gonna probably need to go at least step up by 1, and then maybe step up by 2 there, and then 1. And then you're left with a wireframe, and this is actually just your template for how you're going to connect to the rest of your build. Now, you do have to be dynamic and make adjustments all the time, and sometimes you end up making wireframes and then you have to take them out or go over top of them. So they don't always work out perfectly, but they do give you a pretty good idea of where you need to start and where you need to end up. And there you go. That's all you really need to do to make these big gradients and slopes, is just kind of do it in little sections. And I do kind of wish that I had recorded this big process, because this was a lot more dramatic in the way that we were doing the wireframes. But you get the idea, and really, if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal, because things don't need to be perfect when you're working with natural shapes. Things shouldn't be perfect. The more perfect things look, like how this is pretty square right here, the less natural they will appear to be. So we break that up a little, fill that in, and suddenly it looks a lot more natural. Now, for this section here, kind of this last half part, I won't be able to connect up this grassy hill until we know what we're going to do for the rest of it. Now, an option is to do a grassy hill slope, maybe from there all the way down here, but I don't really think that that would suit the mood down here. I like having this kind of disconnect between the big tower and the village, and if anything, this actually probably needs to go and have it a little more flat down here. So, without knowing exactly what we're going to do there, but I do like that slope. So I think what we're going to do is do more of this, kind of this tapered off cliff right here, we are going to install on this side. And to do that, it is a little bit different, but still kind of the same process. So what you'll want to do instead of do dirt wireframes is kind of start from the bottom and think vertically, but doing the same kind of pattern design. So you want your cliff to start off a little bit closer in and then taper out as you get higher. So maybe we'll go up 4 and then out 1 and then 3, and then suddenly we're at the top. So we'll do that and then kind of just take a look and see how that looks. So it probably could come out 1 more. We will need to put grass underneath it as well. And then the bottoms of these, I just covered up with dark oak planks, and that actually turned out really good. The dark oak and the dark prismarine match together really nicely. So pretty happy with the underside of that. I may be installing some support pillars just to make it look a little less on its own. You know, I'm sure that a balcony that size could support itself, but maybe on these really tall ones, we'll add some cool looking support pillars as well. Also, fun little thing is now I can fly as fast as I want into here and just hit these fountains, and I don't have to worry about any damage. So, nice little benefit of them. And before I forget that this totally exists, let's harvest some of our nether wart that we planted last episode when we were debating whether we wanted our red nether bricks to be used or not. So that should give me plenty of this. And this is one of those things where it can kind of slip your mind, and then suddenly you need hundreds of them, and they grow pretty slowly. So you want to keep on top of the old nether wart game. All right, all things warts aside, let's start on our framework here. So I think that that will work, and it looks a little bit weird until you've actually got it down pat. But this is basically just the backdrop to our cliff that we're going to be building up here. So it looks weird and unnatural until you start working on kind of the finer details of it. So bear with me if it doesn't make sense right off the bat. But I think that you will see what I mean here in a moment. It is important to kind of just get yourself a solid wall going so that you can rid your mind of all the distractions of what's going on behind here, and then it gets a lot easier to work on this kind of stuff when you can just focus on it. With this kind of stuff, it's important to always take a step back and really get a good look at it from far away to get a good idea of how things are going to look. It's very hard to judge these projects if you're up close. And I think that that's looking pretty good. I did start to curve a bit there because we do need to connect with the rest of the build there. This will be quite a long cliff compared to the one I built over there, so it'll be a little bit different. It's also important with these natural builds and anything in Minecraft, and also just kind of anything in life in general, to not be too hard on yourself if you're not getting it right the first time. Things can be difficult, and trying to build natural shapes especially can be very counterintuitive. Making things asymmetrical is often far harder than making them symmetrical. So it'll take a little bit of practice, and you might grab it on your first try. You might need a few days or weeks or months of practice, but if you're determined, you'll grab it eventually, and it'll be all the sweeter for it. So let's go to sleep so that we can actually see what we're doing. Oh no. Oh, there go my anvils. All right, I was wondering when I was going to break through the floor. That's not the worst place that could have happened. Let's go and retrieve those. So it's coming along pretty nicely. We do need to do some pretty fancy curving around there. And I suppose I will need to start bringing that hill over too, because it won't obviously just drop off right where it's at. So these two need to kind of work in tandem here. But there isn't a lot of space for this hill unless we go very sharp with the descent here, which it looks like we're probably going to have to. So cut that off at some point and have it blend in with that. But let's see if we can get this at least partially buttoned up first. So I don't have much in the way for grass blocks left, unfortunately. This project does burn up quite a bit of them. But that's okay. We will just use the dirt blocks for now, because I don't really feel like going and getting more. And let's just see if we can get this part framed out. So I do want, I want this to connect all the way. And the one thing that has been pretty consistent is I have had at least a small dirt grass path all the way around, kind of giving that flared out shape to the top of the tower where it angles down a little bit. I think that that's a really nice shape to have for it, and it kind of gives a supernatural look to the structure, like something is holding this structure up on a cliff that has been eroding away, and something really wants this thing to stay up. So let's, oh, I'm running out of dirt too. Let's see if we can get our drop-off point here. So this is going to need to be quite steep, and it's going to have to blend into that cliff very quickly. So let's take a look at it from the bottom and see if we can get a quick frame put up. I've also just been having to get rid of these things because, boy, they get in my way, and I think that we'll definitely put a few more back on the island because I really like the red ones. I think that they look great against the green grass. But yeah, there's always more down here if we need them for later. So let's see here. We definitely want our cliff to start there, and then it will have to meld into the hill at some point here. This is going to be a tricky one. Probably the trickiest part of this is going to be this final quadrant here, connecting everything up. So I'm just placing these stone blocks on top of the dirt blocks down here, just so that mycelium doesn't spread right away, because I don't want to have to replace them later. So I'll just go and place more grass blocks on these later on, and that should take care of that. Now, we are going for a pretty steep hill here, but it's important to mix it up even on steep stuff. So go up by 1, and then maybe 2, and then up by 1, and then go out 2, and then up by 2. And we do need to make up some ground here. We need to connect, so we might need to go up even more. Okay, that looks like it's gonna connect. So yes, this will be a pretty unusable cliff face by the time it's done here, but that should be where that lines up, and we just enough dirt to make that happen. So this is the part where our hill will turn into our cliff face back there, and it'll take a little bit of finagling to get it to look good, I think, but we will get there. In the meantime, I don't have any more grass blocks, and I don't feel like converting dirt later on. I want to just place it all down as we go. So let's do a little trip and gather a little more grass. And for my grass, I have just been flying a decent ways away from our little village here and the surrounding areas, because who knows what we're going to build in the future. So I didn't want to touch these grassy fields, even though they're very close. I don't want to fly over dirt patches later on. I don't want to have to wait for the grass to grow back. So we'll just leave that looking natural for now. So if we pop on down here, and then our old trusty dusty shovel. And just like that, we are refueled full of grass and on our way back home. And this is how I've been doing it so far. I've had to make several trips to get grass rather than just one big trip where I fill up 15 shulkers. And that's honestly been my preferred way of doing it, just because it helps break up the activity a little bit. You know, get to do a little bit of flying, reset, think about my next plans. So I know it's not for everybody. Oh, this is looking awesome. I can't wait till it's done. But yeah, that is how I have been doing it so far, and I think I will continue to do it that way, because it has been working out great for me. And you know what? I probably should have slept. So as you can see, we're just using that wireframe there to help guide our incline along here. And that's why it's so important to have that guide so that you know you're going to end up in the right spot. Things like connecting this to this is, to be quite frankly honest, just a bit... It's random. You just try, and if things don't work, you cover it up or you tear it down. There really isn't a right or wrong way, as I've said before. But you'd be surprised how easy stuff like this can be. If it's something that you haven't done before, you may be a little intimidated by big, landscaping and terraforming projects, because they do seem like they're difficult. But to be perfectly honest, they're not. It's just. It's getting the confidence to jump into it and just see what happens is kind of the hardest part. Now this section right here that I built up initially is going to have to go, because that is sticking out a little too far, but that does give us a fun opportunity to kind of come up half underneath here and have a little bit of this underside of the balcony exposed. So I am just going to tear out that and see where we end up here, and it could be kind of fun to have... It's nice to not have anything symmetrical on these things. It's just kind of wherever the terrain ended up, that's where it ended up. So let's see how it ends up. Okay, so it is going to take a little bit of roughing up afterwards with some a little more sporadic block placement, but I think that that's a good grade, a good incline for what we needed to accomplish. And then just connecting it back into there might be a little tricky, but we are honestly cruising on this project. I think I started all of the dirt work. How long has it been? I would say so far for the entire project of dirt work around the hill, it's taken me probably about 8 hours so far, which really isn't too bad considering the difference that it makes. It makes it look so much nicer. And let's just pop these down here before we forget. any of that exposed dirt underneath on all of these has just been getting the old dark oak treatment. And boy, I love the way that that looks. I also really love the views that you get on these balconies now. They're actually very nice views. So let's see if we can connect this underside in a way that seems fitting. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I like doing the grass a lot more than this cliff terraforming underneath. I find it's just a little bit more satisfying to do the grass. It also seems to go faster, but at the end of the day, it all needs to get done, so might as well just do the thing. So just about done here, and we have got that looking pretty cool. Now, do remember that we will need to add some dirt in here to break it up. It is very gray right now, so the dirt is necessary. But this hill combination here is what I'm really excited about. So I only did the stone texturing up until a certain point there, because I did know that that hill was going to intersect. And this is looking a lot better than I thought it was going to right away. So let's just continue on here, and I'll just see if I can maybe get this curved in. But this is pretty well gonna be it for our dirt placement, or our grass placement at the very least. So I think that it just needs to actually go straight into the hill. I don't know how we're gonna do a curve, but if it looks funky later on, then we can swap it out. All right, big reveal. How does this all look? Ooh, that's nice. That came together very nicely. It's a good transition there. Once I get some dirt in here and some leaves and grass and trees and all that, it's gonna look super, super cool. But I think that we'll have to do that on another episode. So for now, let's just do a quick fly around and make sure everything is the way we want it. And of course, we don't want to forget to add our dark oak planks at the bottom of this, just to kind of round it off a little bit. And once we put a few more details in this thing, we are looking really, really good landscaping wise. And so I think I'll cut off the video here once I'm done this little bit. And I'm just gonna throw on a movie, maybe watch some Dimension 20, and just power through this and try and get as much done today as I can, because wow, what a difference that we've made in a relatively short period of time by just putting a little bit of effort towards the landscaping, and even capping that tower off with a nice little lip has made a really, really big difference. So I think that that is what the base really needed, and after this is completed, we can move on to other things and back to like our villager trading setup and whatnot. But it was getting a little tiresome looking at the tower feeling so out of place, just kind of half floating and not really having any logic to how it's being supported. Plus seeing the underside and all of the, you know, pipes and whatnot and things from our smelter and all that stuff, it was just starting to bother me a little bit. So now that that's done, we can put our mark on this, and I think that this is just what we needed. And that's all the tips that I have for kind of that large-scale landscaping. You know, the devil's in the details, and we haven't gotten to the details yet, but once you do, that makes a huge difference. But just for kind of those broader strokes, using that wire method really worked well for me on this project. So next time you have an idea and you think, oh, wow, a hill would look really good there, just do that same method. Do a wire outline with some dirt, take a big step back, see if everything is where you want, and then just start filling it in bit by bit. It works amazing. But for now, I will say thank you so much for watching. My name is Fiasco, and I'll catch you in the next one.